back on September 11, 2001, I was actually still in the Marines. I was qualifying on the rifle range. We had heard through the radio traffic and through some word that the Twin Towers were hit. My first instinct was, what could have happened, how many people were hurt or killed, and then second was my father working. The Marine Corps helped me get back home pretty quickly. Through some flights and friends, I was home pretty quickly after, I believe it was September 12th, closer to 13th. I met up with members from my father's company, Rescue 3, and they kind of, they're very, very caring and thoughtful, and kind of gave me a heads up of what I'm going to be going into. They could never describe it the way it actually was. There was nothing, there was no words, there was no gesture, there was nothing that could actually set me up for what was there. I was on the pile roughly, probably on and off for 2 weeks, on the remaining time my leave. And then as soon as my leave was up, I went right back to the Marines. We returned right before Christmas. We're home for about a week. I went back to the pile again. I spent maybe another 2 days down there. Just picked up a rake, just started working, whatever I could do to find, whatever I could find. About a week after that, we got phone calls at home, report back to the station, and we were standing to go back to, or go into Iraq. I was in Iraq roughly 3 months. We were in Kuwait for a couple weeks, and then we were in the invasion. Went from Kuwait all the way up to Baghdad. The path I took to become a fireman started probably, I must have been 5 that I can remember. My father took me to work. I vaguely remember a different company he was in, another section of Brooklyn. And then he transferred to this house. I actually remember coming to this house. It's a lot different then, but I actually worked with a few guys that worked back then. I was probably 7 or 8. Always going to work with my father in his different companies, always knowing I want to be a fireman. And then in 1999, on my 18th birthday, I was old enough to take the next fire department test. So my father took my 2 brothers, my sister, and myself. We all went and took the fire department test. It was the average of 3 or 4 year wait before your number would get called and the process would start. So trying to think of what to do for 4 years, college or school or work, I decided let me call the Marines and joined the Marines. Did my 4 years active service. Came back home once I got out of the Marines, and went to the following class that I can get into, and became a New York City firefighter. The fire department on my brief career has definitely changed. Within 7 years from the day I showed up, or 6 years rather, the day I showed up to today, I've noticed big changes on notification of threats and the way word gets passed down and communications are all changed. And there's always a sense of, us, I think more so now than prior to September 11th. We always think, what could happen if it happened down the street or happened in another borough. In the back of my mind, I say, where are we going to go, or what are we going to do, or how is the city going to react? And I hope it's for the best, and I hope it's everything we are doing works. But I definitely noticed a change from now than before. Being in the same house my father worked, I feel lucky. It's probably the greatest house in the fire department. I'm happy that I was able to get here. I'm happy that I'm able to work with people that did work with my father and knew him personally. It's almost like having him here, because hearing the stories from them, it kind of hits you. It's like, oh, they worked alongside of him, and it makes you feel good.